Welcome back, everybody, and over to Brad from Celtra.
All right. Hopefully everybody can see and hear me. Welcome live from Denver, Colorado, where it's 5:20 a.m. in the morning. So my name is Brad Christus. I'm the Global Director of Enterprise Solutions here at Celtra. Today, I'm going to take you through kind of our creative automation platform and how we kind of address the demands that we see around this growing creative gap, and how we leverage digital asset management tools to transform production. Feel free to ask some questions in the chat. I can't see those, but I'll address those after the session as we go. So really quick, kind of the agenda of the conversation today for the next 20 minutes. I'm going to talk about kind of some of those creative challenges that we see in the market with our customers, talk about the creative gap, or this concept of the creative gap, and how we kind of help with customers fixing their workflows and maximizing the output, give you an introduction of what creative automation is inside of our platform, and then take you through kind of a live demonstration featuring a digital asset management partner of ours called Tenevis, who's actually giving a TechLab session at the same time right now. That said, we'll just dive right into it. Just going to move some stuff around here really quick. So the first challenge we see a lot is brand governance, right? I'm sure you've heard this, especially if you're at this conference, right? But we found that 60% of folks, right, kind of distrust brands when their ad designs don't match kind of that experience you have, regardless if it's both physical or online, right? So if you're consuming that kind of brand experience inside of these different vehicles, whether it's virtual or physical, we see that people kind of distrust that brand. So picture yourself, right, as you consume these different things, right? If you're surfing on a website, or if you're in a different app, and or consuming things on, print, right? And you go into that kind of brick and mortar store, and the ads are completely different, right? A good use case is, think of like fast food, where you see an advert on the television, and you go experience that, and the brand imagery and the brand information that you see is completely different around that. So a lot of the brand governance kind of gets addressed with inside digital asset management systems, but at the same time, we help address some of that through our creative automation platform. The other challenge we see is kind of that dull creative, right? So again, picture yourself surfing the wonderful world of the web, right? Or different channels that you're on. And 66% of folks that we've talked to see, they want more creative variety within inside these brand assets. So think of those kind of static pieces of content that you see that don't necessarily change, right? Or invigorate your buying emotions, right? As you kind of move from different platform to platform with inside of there. So these are just two challenges we see with inside from our customers. And just with those two challenges, and there's many more, right? There's this kind of creative gap that emerges, right? And what that looks like is if you take, volume and time and this XY axis, kind of look from the past, the present, and the future, you'll start to see this kind of hockey stick happen, right? So there's these increased demands due to a bunch of different things that we've seen, right? One is new product launches, right? There's constantly new products that you're trying to go to market with, you're trying to show off. And there's also more and more campaigns, for better or worse, right? During this pandemic, we've been, arguably spent less time outside, right, to experience those brick and mortar experiences, but you've seen more and more online campaigns, right, to get more consumers to act on different pieces of glass, depending on where they're consuming those campaigns. Content refreshes, right? We talk about digital asset management. The most expensive piece of IP is, photography, video, and the production that goes around that. So taking existing products, right, and leveraging the stuff inside of the digital asset management system, and try to refresh that content, right, to create, to solve that challenge of dull creatives. Another one is channels, right? Channels constantly change, right? I joke. If you would ask me a year ago if I would be on TikTok, I would have been like, "What are you talking about?" Right? But luckily I have a 12 and 13-year-old that have showed me how to use that, and now you're consuming different types of piece of content, right, across that typical that channel or different channels that are out there. And then again, traditionally there's testing, right? So A, B, even C testing, persona-based testing. What's working in what channels, with what campaigns, in what markets around those things. So again, seeing all these different demands, arguably production resources are staying the same, if not slightly going up. or even going down. And what happens is then you create this kind of creative gap, right? So how do I fulfill these demands based on all of this stuff that's coming in with the same amount of production resources? And how do I continue to be creative, right? And with that, there's a challenge in the workflow as well. So how do you maximize that output within inside of your creative production workflow to address those demands? I promise you, I did not wake up at 3 in the morning and just create this workflow. But if you think of it from ideation to consumption, right, you have this kind of approved concept. The creative team starts to go through this copy, paste, repeat marathon with all these wonderful emojis that are there. Once those are done, you go through this kind of creative review process, regardless if it's manual or automated, right? You have this whole feedback loop. Again, that could be annotations with inside a PDF. It could be a piece of software you already have. You get it approved, right? And then you realize, oh boy, right? There's some issues with my copy, right? Or there's a typo, or there's a different product shot that's in these banners and whatnot. And then basically you go back to the copy, paste, repeat marathon and go through all of this review and approval process again before it goes live. Now, there's different ways to solve that. And one of the ways that we do at Celtra with our creative automation platform is basically creative automation. So if you think of that creative gap and streamlining those creative production workflows, we have a solution within inside of our platform called creative automation that allows you to scale at large volumes. A couple quick use cases, and I'll go through this in the demonstration. Localization is a big one, right? So if you look on the top left, right, you'll see an asset. This could be an asset that lives inside of your digital asset management system as a mezzanine file. You went through all the rigor to create the copy, create the product shots, you got talent shots, you got call to actions that are inside of there. We can take that piece of content or that mezzanine file and start to pull it into our platform, which I'll show you here in a moment. Tag these different variables. So if you wanted to change the call to action, right, or if you wanted to change the product copy, this is an easy example of where we're doing translations against this, right? So again, we take in one asset and we can build out 7 different variants so that you can go to market and start putting these assets out into the wild, wild west, into the ad trafficking world or e-commerce world that's there. Another good example is audience specific variants, right? So again, taking all of the pieces of content from the DAM system, starting to build out different variations, doing some A, B, C type testing, right? Where you're swapping out product shots, you're swapping out different layouts, you're changing the color, you're changing the copy, right? Where you can then distribute those out to different ad trafficking sites and different channels, right? To see where the engagement's happening for the customers that you want to go after, right? So again, through the product, which you'll see, we're able to kind of modify these and build out a recipe more or less where we can start to generate these different variants at scale. And the last, but not the least, right, is formats, channels, and sizes. Again, when I talked about, that creative gap with all these channels that are out there and these different formats, with inside the platform, we have pre-baked formats that kind of adhere to a lot of these channels. So if it's Twitter, if it's Facebook, if it's Snapchat, if it's Insta, YouTube, all that fun stuff, we have pre-built, templates that you can leverage, regardless if it's, a display ad that looks like a skyscraper, or if it's a video or animated HTML. We're able to kind of give you the guardrails around those with inside of the platform itself, and put things in there like the furniture that you see, with inside Facebook, so you can preview those things. That said, I'm going to take you through a demonstration. Let's get out of here. And oops, let me minimize this here. And I know there's a little bit of a lag, so we'll give it a few seconds. But basically, this is the Celtra Creative Automation Platform. It's a project-based SaaS application, right? So if you come in here, you'll see different projects that I have. You can see that there's some attributes and metadata that has flown in. It can flow in from different sources, whether it's a DAM or another piece of or another software, if it's PIN, things like that. You'll see who's involved. Again, you can have different folks involved. It's an SSO compliant application, right? We can hook up just about any directory services that's there. That said, I'm going to go into this particular campaign or this project. And picture yourself having a media plan, right? So I know that I need to grab some assets from a creative perspective and build out and distribute these things. So once I'm inside this particular campaign, I can say, all right, I want a new design file. And as you see, kind of what I mentioned, there's a bunch of different channels with pre-built stuff. So I'm going to say I want to create a video or an image for Facebook. I'm going to select that. I want some static content. So I'm going to say, all right, I'll take this image and I want to build out some animated HTML as well. I'm going to select those different types of assets that I want to build out. We'll call it, this is way too early for me. Again, customize different metadata that you want to put inside of this particular design file, right? So again, I'll just say this is stock content. Again, this is all configurable and how you have it. And once you create that, it'll basically create a new design file for you. I'll click into this template where I'm going to start to build out different templates for those formats that I selected. Once I click into this, you'll see that it's more Adobe-esque experience. I'm going to actually switch to my static piece of content what's inside of here. And all the features and keystrokes that you would be used to with inside of Photoshop will be available inside of our kind of designer with inside of here. So that said, before I begin building my template, right, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I'm inside my Photoshop application where I'm working on a particular product here. I get a message from my digital asset management system or Workfront or my orchestration engine or my task engine that I have. As a designer, right, I want to be able to pull out those assets. So what you see here is Tenevis's integration called StoryLink, where I can search their digital asset management repository. And for instance, I know I need to work on this particular file. I'm going to fetch this piece of this asset, check it out. Give it a second here. Check it out with inside the digital asset management system. It should load in a second with inside of Photoshop here. And what you'll see is that the idea here is that we want the digital asset management system to govern the content, right? So it's stored with inside of there. And as a creative person, I want to be able to come in here and start to manipulate that stuff. So again, with inside Photoshop, I can do all the magical stuff that I would do as a creative, right? You'll notice that there's multiple layers. Tenevis preserves all these different layers, right? It has parent-child relationships and linking assets and things like that. So as I come in here, make some modifications, if I wanted to change stuff, I could, right? Our Celtra CA platform also has an exporter. So as I finish those, I can check it back into the digital asset management system, and or I can export this back out into that particular template that you just saw me create from that media plan. So once I'm done in here, I can automatically export these things and come back into our platform for CA, Celtra. And then what I can do is basically pull that piece of content in. We'll preserve all the information that's in there. So you saw it living with inside of Photoshop, and now I basically exported that out, pushed it back, or pushed it into our template designer. So what you'll notice is, again, we preserve the layers that were with inside of Photoshop, and now I can start to do different types of things with inside of here. And I can design this similar to what I would do in Photoshop. What we're doing is taking that mezzanine file that's high res, compressing that down into more of an ad-friendly variant export that we can do. So with inside of here, I can do tons of different features. I can put in different components, regardless if it's a text box, a shape. I can start to group things. You'll see the assets that we pulled in from the digital asset management system. I can see some metadata around those things as well. Actually, let me pull up a product shot. And then I can kind of see the aspect ratios that I wanted to create. So as I built out that media plan, I said I wanted a 300 by 250. But now I've noticed that I'm going to want to create another variant just for fun. I'll say I want to create another 200 by 200. I'll add that to this particular template. And what it's going to do is I'm going to build a template within this 300 by 250, but it's also going to export out a 200 by 200, and we'll handle all that compression around that stuff. So now that I've built this template, and I'm actually going to go into a pre-flighted one, so you can see all the wonderful features in our designer. Let me go back into my design files. We'll go into this particular HANA template. I'll go into the template, similar to what you just saw me pull in from Tenevis. Once this file loads up here in a second, you'll notice a couple things. So first off, this is my animated HTML template that I built. So what you'll see is kind of that timeline experience, we have all the layers, right, where we've imported this in. Inside the application for animated HTML and video, we can do different types of animations with easing and bringing things in. We can preview those out with inside of here and do all sorts of fun little easy animations for export. Now, but I'm going to go back into the static piece of content that I had. And what you'll see inside of here is that I've created 3 templates. And what you'll see is a square one as we load up here. A square, which is 300 by 250. You'll see a banner ad, and you'll see a skyscraper ad that I built in. And then underneath each one of these, right, you'll see these different variations that I want to create. So essentially, I have 3 templates, and I'm building 7 different assets inside of there. Again, there's tons of cool features you can have with inside of here. There's powerful features around typography and copy, right, where we can do alignment, we can import fonts and all sorts of fun stuff like that. And then what happens is now that I've built these templates out, I can select these different parts of it and make them the variables inside of there. So you'll notice that each one of these are selected so that I can replace different things. So if I wanted to replace the product shot, if I want to replace the call to action, right, I mark these as basically variables inside the template. So basically what I've done, import stuff in, right, from a digital asset management system in Photoshop. I've marked up what I want to be a variable. I've done some creative design with inside of here, moved some things around, built out some animations. And then from there, right, I'm going to start to inject a data feed into it, right? And if I go back to my particular project or design file, and give it a sec here, you'll see that I have this feeds option. So I've built out these templates. So I've said I want to build 9 things. I want to build a Facebook piece of content. I want to build an animated HTML, and I want to build out 7 different statics. And now what I have here is basically a spreadsheet-esque view of where I can start to populate that information. So from the left of the plus sign, right, is a bunch of metadata that I've pre-built, right, so that I can categorize what I want to do. You'll notice that we're doing some A, B, and some C testing here. So for each line, each row that you see with inside of here, these are the variables I want applied to all 9 of those variants that are there. So again, I'm changing the color of the background, the foreground, giving it a particular logo that can be pulled from the digital asset management system, giving it the copy text that's there. There's tons of powerful tools with inside of here, right, where I can have the copy not break the line. I can avoid lone words. There's a bunch of different line break stuff that I can do. I can switch the text direction. So we talked about localization. So if I wanted to read right to left or left to right, we can do that as well. But just to show you in real time, the solution kind of cranking out, I'll say, click me. What I did there is basically change the call to action for this particular row, right, of variants that I want to create. So I'm going to save that. And once I save that, and I go back to my design file here, when I go back into there, the system should already know that we need to update the creative files that are there based on the change that I just made. So we'll go into the design file, we'll hit creatives, you can see it needs to be updated. Oops, you can see it needs to be updated. I'll go into this creative, my creatives. It'll show me all the creatives it created already from this design file. So you can see there's 135 of them. So again, it's taking those rows of information, applying it to those 9 different variants that we wanted or templates, and then scaling those out. So based on me changing the call to action, it's going to go out and change these particular ones that are there. Again, 7 statics, an animated HTML, and a Facebook piece of content. So I'll click go out and generate, and through the power of the cloud and our SaaS-based tool, it will go and update all of these with the new call to action. So once that's done, you'll see in this kind of creatives page, right, there's different things we can do. We can start to comment, we can start to annotate, we can share these things out, but I want to preview all of these. So I'm going to click on preview all. And as I go here, it'll generate all the creatives that I have, and give it a second here. As we go, you'll start to see some of these come pulling in. I'm going to filter these out. So you'll see the Facebook ones come in. I'm going to filter these out by size. And we'll take this one, and this one. We'll say apply. And you'll start to see these different variants come in a preview style. And here they come. as we go. And you can see the one that said click me, that's the one I just changed. So for each of those rows, you saw the colors change, you saw the call to action, you saw the product shots change with inside of there. And again, I have a preview capability within it. So as I scroll down, I'll see my skyscraper image where it clicked, and so on and so forth. And there's what we also can do is start to annotate with inside of the tool, right? So if there's different things I wanted to do, and I said, all right, let's annotate on this guy. I want to change that. I could start to call on different folks within inside my organization to have that creative review process. On top of that, right, we can also share this content out, right, through a URL. This can be accessible for folks with inside the directory services, and it can be accessible as well on a onesie, twosie, or a batch level for other folks inside of, or externally inside your organization. So now that I've created all that, all those variants, the next thing I want to do is push those out to different destinations. So as I kind of come in here and go back to my particular design file and project, you'll see that here's all the stuff that I have. Here's all the variants I have. I want to distribute these out. So out of the box, the solution works with many different distribution mechanisms, right? It's not limited to this, right? We'll round robin these back into the digital asset management system itself, and or we can push to different ad trafficking sites or, right, social sites that you see here. So again, have Facebook set up, or Meta as it's called now. I'm able to search the creatives I just created and push these down to an ad set that's particular to what I'm working with. So again, you can distribute these down and push these ads live. So as you make changes to those different variants, they could be pushed down to different ad trafficking sites in real time. So that said, that is the creative automation platform. And I'm going to go back into my presentation. And wherever that went, there we go. We'll go from there. And one of the takeaways I want everybody to take away is, you know, if you keep repeating it, automate it and let your DAM govern it, right? So we're kind of that content assembly part of that production digital supply chain that you guys would have, right? So assets would live inside a digital asset management system. We would then take those and scale those out at volume. If you want to get in touch, here's my email. Again, shoot some messages in the chat, right? If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. It could be within hours or days, depending on when I get access to it. Please visit our virtual booth and let us know if you have any questions. Thanks for taking the time to check this out today.